my series of speeches talking about the importance of getting a pipeline to Tidewater, in particular talking about the Trans Mountain Pipeline. As I'm sure you all know, our government has been very focused on creating an interest in getting the pipeline to Tidewater throughout the rest of the country. When I was first elected in the summer, right after I got elected, I went to St. John's and was able to successfully negotiate the Canadian energy strategy, where we had other premiers acknowledge the need to have infrastructure as part of a national project of building Canada's economy. And so we did that, and then of course through our climate leadership plan we were able to secure the approval of the federal government for the Kinder Morgan pipeline. And so that was approved about this time last year. And since then, as you know, there have been some legal challenges, always expected. We always knew that they would come. And so our government has gone to those legal forums and advocated on behalf of the pipeline, on behalf of all Albertans, on behalf of the energy industry, and we would argue on behalf of all Canadians, because we know it contributes so much to our economy. So we've done that, and it's been great. And so certainly, so I've been in Toronto repeatedly, Ottawa repeatedly, Montreal. I've been to Vancouver a couple of times, and most recently I went out east and then out to Vancouver just last week, or a couple of weeks ago. Last week we got the preliminary ruling of the NEB around the City of Burnaby's processes with respect to the certificates. And in fact, the NEB ruled in favor of the submissions that were made by the pipeline company and the government of Alberta. So we were very pleased with that. It actually also aligned with the submissions that were made by the federal government. The federal government went to the NEB because we called on them to do it. They hadn't planned to do it originally, but then they did. And so collectively, the representations of all three groups were successful. So that's not the only judicial decision that's going to come. There's going to be more, but it's certainly a good step, and it means that some of our original positions are being accepted by these panels, and that's good news and a good sign going forward. So that's what we've been doing, and we're going to keep doing it. We know it's absolutely fundamental to jobs and the economic recovery here in Alberta, and especially in Calgary. We know that if we can diversify our markets, we can get a better price for our product. No matter what happens to the international price of oil, we're always going to get more if we can diversify our markets. And that's going to mean more investment here in Alberta. And we also know that because of our climate leadership plan, and because we put the cap on emissions, that we're able to go to all markets and say, listen, this pipeline doesn't have any negative impact on emissions, and so it's just about more money. That's it. And how easy a deal is that? That's a great deal. So that's the point that we're making to Canadians, as many as we can, and we're starting to get a really good response.
We'll open it up to a couple questions.
Okay. Lovely dress, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was wondering, what initiatives are you willing to take to ensure that immigrants become more a part of the Legislative Assembly?
Well, there's a lot of things that we can do. As you know, just generally speaking, we did an overhaul of our agency boards and commissions recruitment and appointment process. And so we decided that we needed to have a much more transparent process, and then we needed to reach out into a broad number of communities that historically weren't represented on Alberta's agencies, boards, and commissions. So not only new immigrant communities, but also other minority groups and women as well, and young people. All of those groups were not fully represented on these boards, and so we're doing everything we can to change that. Another thing that we've been doing, of course, as you know, I asked Minister Egan to begin meetings across the province to talk about what we can do around racism, to reduce racism, and to combat some of the attitudes that contribute to some of the negative things that we've seen throughout Alberta. And so that work went on over the summer, and we're just waiting on the final report from there. And then the third thing that we're doing that I think will be really critical, particularly as it relates to politicians, is that by putting in place both spending limits as well as barring corporate needy donations, and then just right now, this fall, we're working on reducing the number or limiting the effect of PACs. By taking money out of politics, it means more people can get involved in politics. because ultimately you should get elected on the basis of votes, not on the basis of how much money you have. And I think that's going to create more diversity in terms of who is able to be involved.
Okay, thank you.
Premier, first of all, thanks for giving us the opportunity to have interaction with you. My question to you is, you just mentioned about the diversification. Can you a little bit more develop on it? Is it based on the finished products of the petroleum side of it, or something else that is there on your mind?
Well, it's a really good question, and I'm sorry if I go on too long in this answer. There's a lot of different elements to it. So for instance, with non-renewable resources, of course, we're working very hard to upgrade the products and finish the products that we have here more. So an example of that, for instance, is the petrochemical diversification program, where we incented roughly what will ultimately become about $6 billion worth of investment by upgrading petrochemical products just outside of Edmonton. So that's an upgrading of our petrochemical and our petro products. But we're also working to diversify into other sectors altogether. We're doing a lot. Alberta is quite a leader on agri-foods, for instance, and agri-foods technological diversification. We're also working with the tech sector, with the high-tech sector, and so we've had some good first steps both at U of C and U of A. We're also just generally supporting small businesses, because at the end of the day, it is the private sector and businesses themselves that are going to engage in that diversification and find those markets and find those new products. And so what we're trying to do is support them. And so we have a number of different programs through the Ministry of Economic Development, which is led by Minister Darren Billis, that support small businesses, whether it's venture capital, giving access to more capital, giving capital tax grants, giving infrastructure tax grants, a range of supports to partner with the engines of the economy, which is our private sector and our small businesses in there. And then, of course, the other thing that we're doing is continuing to maintain stable funding for our post-secondary sector, because that's, it's good ideas come from a well-educated population, and that's one of the things that is our strength in Alberta, and so we need to preserve it and grow it.
So just one last quick question. Where do you see economy? Do you have any updates for us? Is it going to be the same for another 3 years, or is it going to go north again?
Well, actually, as things right now, as you know, or you've probably heard, most economic forecasters right now are saying that Alberta will lead economic growth this year in Canada, and also will lead economic growth next year in Canada. RBC updated our economic growth projections for next year to about 4.3%, I believe it was, and the Conference Board of Canada went so far as to suggest that next year we'd have 6.7% growth, which is big. Either way, though, all the signs that we look to show economic growth are looking up. Retail sales are up, manufacturing is up, investor confidence is up, housing starts are up, employment is up. All these things are growing in Alberta, so we're pretty confident that we're working our way out of it. That being said, we know that not everybody in Calgary and Alberta are feeling that yet. There are still families that are looking for work, and parts of families that are looking for work. So our job's not done, but we're actually pretty optimistic about the path forward. We just have to roll up our sleeves, keep working together with businesses and with communities to bring Albertans out of this tough time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.